Yeah, constraints are the rules that we can apply on the type of data in a table. So here we can specify the limit on the type of data that can be stored in a particular column in a table using constraints. So by using constraints we can specify limit on the type of data. Suppose I want to take this column value in a specific range, okay? So I can use one constraint, check constraint for that column. So that is the meaning of this statement. If I want to take only the value, default value, only 5,000 rupees exam fee. So I want to specify constraint for exam fee column. So that is the use of constraints. So no need to enter every time the exam fee is 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. If other than 5,000, if you provide, that will be saved in database. So if you didn't provide any value, by default it will take 5,000 rupees. So it ensures the accuracy and reliability of data in the database. So by using these constraints, we will maintain the quality of information also. And we have to remember where we are going to specify these constraints. We are specifying these constraints in two cases: alter table statement and create table statement. Initially, we have to think about create table statement. Okay, so create table statement are used to create a table in the database, while creation we will assign the constraints directly, and then we will provide values all the columns specified in the table later. Okay, but alter table means for existing data in the table, if you want to apply constraints on the specified column, then you can use alter table statements. So here we are dividing domain constraints and key constraints. So domain constraints means we are applying constraints only on specific columns. Okay, so these constraints we can call domain constraints. Key means, so we are key constraints, we can refer one column name as a key to identify a row of table, uniquely identify a row of table. So for that purpose we are using key constraints, and important is referential integrity constraints. So this is based on the foreign key. So this foreign key plays a vital role in the relations. So we are linking two tables. So one table with another table by using foreign key. This is called cross reference or referential integrity constraints. Okay. So that concepts here I given. So domain constraints, key constraints, and referential integrity constraints. So here key constraints, see here. So in the given table, customer ID is the key attribute of customer table. So this is the key attribute, and it most likely to have a single key for one customer. So it unique for each and every customer. Customer ID example, you can take Aadhaar number. Aadhaar number is unique for each and every person. Similarly, PAN number. PAN number is unique for each and every person. So that item only we can choose. Shows the uniqueness of data. So what is the use of this? It maintains the integrity of data and it avoids the duplication of data. Okay, that is the use of key constraints. Okay, so here customer ID, if I select one means, so based on this key we can access the Google, customer name, Google. Okay, and about the status also you can access or retrieve. So again for key 2, so you can access the customer name Amazon and status active. So whatever you want from the table you can access based on the key constraint customer ID. So here referential integrity constraints. So it is the concept of foreign key. So this is a primary table and this is a secondary table. So here customer, what customer will do in shopping. So he will buy some items and he want to pay the money. So just what is the second table, invoice. So here invoice table uses the customer ID. Invoice table uses the customer ID to find the total amount of one. So one directly refers to the customer's table. So here customer ID, these two columns must be the names are similar, okay, and we can link these two tables. Here customer ID is a primary key and here customer ID is a foreign key. So then the relation will be established. So directly customer will receive an invoice based on the customer ID. So he has to pay total $300. So this is called referential integrity constraints. Okay, now we will see summary what we discussed here. What is constraints and types of integrity constraints. This is the syntax for creating table. This also we will discuss in SQL. Now very important, constraints are commonly used in SQL. These constraints are commonly used in SQL: not null, unique, primary key, foreign key, check, default, and index constraints. So we will see one by one now. Not null constraint here. So not null. What is the use of not null constraint? So once you define a not null constraints for column, so it enforces a column to not accept null values. So by default in database management system, you are not providing any value to the specified column. So it will take or it will hold null value. Okay, to avoid this, we are defining that column as a not null constraint. Once you define that column as a not null constraint, so it will not accept null values. Okay, so try to understand. It will not accept null values. Example here, create table, students is the name of the table. Okay, so we are defining 4 columns here: student ID, student last name, student first name, student age. So we are taking ID, last name, first name as not null constraints. That means you will not leave any, you cannot give any null value for these 3 columns. So you have to give some value, you have to provide some value, then only the record, or you are going to update a record, that record will be saved in the database. So this is not null constraint. So where we are specifying this, see here, create table statement, and what is another option? Alter table statement. Okay, so alter table is used only for existing table. If you want to apply not null constraint, you can use alter table. See here, alter table students, just I am taking, already we given not null in previous slide, but suppose if you are not given, now we want to apply for not null constraint, then how you are going to give a not null constraint? By using alter table statement. Alter table, the data table name. Okay, next to modify. So we are going to modify the column student address, and we are giving the constraint not null here after executing this statement. So not null constraint is applied for student address column in the student data base or students table. So this is alter table statement. We are assigning not null constraints the existing table column value in the existing table in the database. So now very important, unique constraint. So normally you know the meaning of unique. Only one person having unique security number or unique Aadhaar number. So daily database, thousands of records are stored in database. So here daily we are saving lots of records, means we have to provide and we have to protect our data also. We don't want to allow the repetitive numbers again and again. This is called duplicate data. So to avoid the duplicate values, we are using the unique constraints. Once you specified to a column as a unique constraint, it means the particular column cannot have duplicate values in the table. So this is important, you have to remember. So to assign unique values, we are going to assign unique constraint. Okay. So just you observe from the following table. Using create table statement, we are going to assign unique constraint. So create students table. So what are the column names or attributes? Roll number. So we define as a not null constraint. Student name, we define not null and unique. You can define with a small gap two constraints together. So here not null and unique, we are defining two constraints. Next, student age, we are defining not null constraint, and I am defining student address as a unique constraint. That means the address must be unique to each and every person. Okay, and here I am taking primary key. So if you define not null or primary key, that means even suppose if you are not giving not null constraint, you are defining primary key of roll number, that means you are choosing roll number as a primary key. That means you have to give some value, because if it is a primary key means it will not accept null value. That is also property of primary key. So here another method, existing table, you can also assign constraint by using alter table statement, alter table, table name, and add unique of column name. So you execute this statement, we will apply the unique constraint on the column name, student name, default. So default constraint, very important. So you try to understand what is the meaning of default. Usually we say the default of computer, so and so, so and so, so and so, like that. Okay. So what is the default value of this table? Suppose I am going to pay the fees of examination fee. So each and every student I want to save the amount 500. So that how can I store? If you want to give again and again, so it is a waste of time. I want to reduce the column value because the column value is similar for all the students. So then we can use this default constraint. It provides a default value to a column. So up to when there is no value provided by you. So if you are not going to provide any value, the value, whatever the value you given with constraint, that value is common for each and every student. Suppose if you provide some value, so then it will be saved in database. So once we finish, I will show you in a practical point of view. So this is a default, and the same way we can use alter table statement. So to give a default constraint here, and we can drop the constraint. How to drop a constraint? Drop means here to remove the constraint for specific column. So then we are using the syntax in alter table, through alter table, alter table statement. So alter table, table name. So you have to give, suppose I am using a students table. So here I am using students table name. And then alter column, we are going to remove the constraint. So what type of constraint we are going to remove here? So I give an example for default. So you can remove the constraint by specifying the column name, and drop is a keyword used to remove the constraint from the table. Now check constraint. So this is also very important. This constraint used for specifying the range of values for a particular column of a table. So when this constraint is being set on a column, it ensures that the specified column must have the value falling in the specified range. So example, I will say one example. Suppose I am going to fix the roll numbers of computer science is greater than 500. Okay, so computer science students roll numbers must greater than 500. That means the roll numbers starts from 501 to 560 for A section and 561 to 5B0 and 5C0 up to 5C9 and 5D0. So up to so on this will continue. Okay, only the series you can start with 500. Okay, so I have to give a condition. So how can we give condition? So you can give condition and you can specify the rule by using the constraint check. So here you can see check I am giving the roll number is greater than 1000. Okay, it will accept only the roll number is greater than 1000. Suppose here I given greater than 1000. If I given 500, it will not accept. So this constraint is used for specifying a range of values or specifying to check condition. Okay, if this condition is satisfied, then it saves or inserts the value into the row in a table. Okay, so this remaining we are defining through create table statement. Here the students database, here S is missing, so students database. So this is the table name and these are the column names. Roll number we are defining a rule. So here we are specifying the condition. So it must follow the satisfy the condition, then only the value will be inserted into roll number in this field, in this column. So next student name we are giving constraint not null, and every column we define one constraint here default. Okay, so here student address I didn't take any constraint. So here primary key I choose and roll number as the primary key. So here we are using check constraint to specific range of values or to satisfy some condition, then only the row of data will be inserted into that table or a column value inserted into a row. Okay, so this is the summary of four constraints. So not null constraint makes sure that column does not hold a null value. So when we don't provide a value for a particular column while inserting a record into a table, it takes a null value by default. By specifying null constraint, we can be sure that particular columns cannot have null values. So unique constraint enforces a column or set of columns to have a unique values. If a column has unique constraint, it means that particular column cannot have duplicate values in a table. So that is unique constraint. So to avoid duplicate values by using this unique constraint. So the default constraint provides a default value of a column when there is no value provided while inserting a record into a table. So this is default constraint. When you want to give some default value for particular column, so then you can use default constraint. So next we are using constraint check. This constraint used for specifying the range of values for particular column of a table. So it has to satisfy that range or that condition, then only it will allow you to store the value in that specified column. So it must be fall into the that specified range. This is called check constraint.